Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And we're just going to create a velocity banking spreadsheet from scratch. And it's really, really easy, right? So as you can see here, I have one that's pretty much been done, right? But to create one, it's really easy because all you need is two things. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new sheet here. And if you remember, I always talk about the same thing almost every single video. And the reason that I'm so good at this is because of that Bruce Lee quote that I don't fear the man who does 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. Actually, let's look for that Bruce Lee quote. 10,000 kicks. All right. Right here. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And I literally do the same thing over and over again, right? Because there's only two requirements to velocity banking. Number one is a budget, right? That's requirement number one. And number two is our line of credit as our main operating account, right? So again, I'm starting this from scratch. Now I'm going to go a little bit fast because here's the thing. If there's something that you need to kind of focus on, just pause the video. Okay? Just pause the video because if I do a pause, it's going to be weird and awkward. And these videos are usually 16, 20 minutes, which in my opinion is way too long. So, number one is the budget. So let's go ahead and move this somewhere else so we have enough space to work. But we're going to do a few things. We need an income, we need our expenses, leftover savings, cash flow, right? And so what we do is we have the first column here, which is the average American. And what does the average American mean? Someone who works out of their checking account. And then here we have the velocity banker or velocity banking or whatever label you want to call it. Right? And I always like to do this. I always like to highlight these yellow, bold them, put a underline underneath, right? Makes it a little bit more fancy. And then for income, I always like to color it green. So let's look for the green color right here. Expenses, red, right? Bad. Savings, neutral blue. We'll do this one. Ooh, light blue. Yeah, let's do light blue, and we'll make cash flow black. Even though black can sometimes be associated with negativity, we'll associate it with positivity in this video. Okay, so now what we should do is we should actually format some of these cells to be currency. So if we go over here and we click this column and we actually click this column as well. So you could do this, hold control, hold this one right here. The main thing is that you want to format it so that it displays currency. So we just do number format and then do currency. You can use accounting as well, right? You can use accounting. If it has negative numbers, then you can select what's the negative number going to be. Is it going to be red? Is it going to be parentheses? It's going to be red parentheses. I love using red parentheses. Okay. And so now what we do is essentially, you know, what we've always been doing. I mean, you could write your own personal information. We'll just say it's $5,000, right? $5,000 of income. And then what we have to do is also an expense breakdown, right? Expense breakdown. Because here in the expense breakdown, we have to list every single debt that we have, right? So I always like to use like 2 or 3 credit cards, a couple of loans. But let's just make it really easy, just 2 credit cards. So credit card 1 and then credit card 2. And then you're going to have to figure out the interest rate and also the amount. And again, you can use your own real life data or you just make it up because many times I just make it up. Okay. And so let's say we have, I don't know, 5,000, 5K at 29%. Okay. And then the balance of this one will be, I don't know, 4K at 30%, right? So how do we know and how do we figure out what these monthly payments are? I always like to use bankrate.com. So Bankrate, if you just do a quick Google search, Bankrate minimum CC payment calculator, minimum credit card payment calculator. You can see this right here. You just click right here. You just fill in the amounts, right? So let me just go back and forth. 5,000 at 29%. So 5,000, 29%, right? And then you could see the minimum payment, which is 170.83, right? So let's do that, 170.83. And then same thing with the second credit card. Now, again, all credit cards have different ways where they calculate the minimum payment, but I always just like to use the standard interest plus 1% of the balance. But if you have actual credit cards you want to use, I would actually call the credit card company and they'll tell you the exact formula that they use. It's probably on your statement too. So let's do 4,000 at 30%. 4,000 at 30%. Okay. 140. 140. So do 140. And then we just add some loans, right? Do you want to add a student loan, auto loan, mortgage? It doesn't matter. Now, when we deal with amortized loans, you can use bankrate.com, although I find calculator.net to be easier. So I just type in calculator.net loan amortization, right? And then you can see this amortization calculator right here. So just as a general rule, student loans are 10 years, car loans are 5 years, and home loans are 30 years, right? So it just depends on how many loans you want to mess with. So maybe we could just say, hey, all we have is that student loan, right? Student loan at how much? 30K? You know what's crazy? There are so many students out there who have like more than $100,000 student loans at the undergrad level. And I remember I was watching this interview in like 2008, and I remember hearing of somebody having more than $100,000 in student loans, and it shocked me. It was like so shocking. And now it just seems like nobody really cares, right? Like nobody really cares, which is sad. All right, so now student loan and loans. Here's a typical thing about loans. Loans in general have a lower interest rate than credit cards because loans are a one-way street, right? You dump your money into a loan, you can't get that money back, and so it's usually going to be lower interest rate, probably 4 or 5%. I don't know. I don't have a student loan, but you just kind of guess 5%. Okay, let's see, 5%. And then we got to figure out the monthly payment. Okay, so let's just go ahead and type this information in. So 30,000, 5% for 10 years. So the loan amount is 30,000, 10 years at 5%, right? And then we just go ahead and calculate that, and then you'll see that the monthly payment is 318.20. Okay, so now we have to figure out, do we want any other debts here, or we'll just make it simple? Hey, heck, let's just make it simple for now, right? So now we're just going to do other. So these are what we call our general expenses that are not related to debt. So remember, in velocity banking, you have to list every single debt that you have, and then in one category, put your rent if you have rent, and then general expenses like other, well, food, gas, insurance, etc., in another line. And these will be your general expenses. Now, if you have a mortgage, definitely put that here. The reason I always put rent in its own columns is because everybody usually knows how much they pay in rent in a month. But all these other things, it's kind of like garbled up, right? They kind of know, but they kind of don't. Okay. So what's our rent here? It's going to be 1,000. We'll say $1,000, but we'll say this person is just living alone, which is kind of, I don't know, 5,000 a month living by oneself with the $1,000 rent, right? And then other food, gas, insurance. I don't know, and we'll see another 1,000. I think myself, I spend $2,000 on general expenses a month, which is kind of crazy. How I just feel like everything's so expensive nowadays. But I do have a little bit more responsibilities. Okay, so now back to my point. With our expense breakdown, we have to list every single debt because the whole point of velocity banking is to pay off debt using lines of credit as our main tool. Lines of credit, right? So let's go ahead and do this. We want to make sure that all of our expenses are summed up. So you just put the equal sign, sum, and then you tag which column. So this is line 8, right? So line 8, B8 to B12, okay? And then that's going to be $2,629.03. Now, to calculate your leftover savings, it's B2 income minus B3, right? Now, savings and cash flow at this point are kind of the one and the same, right? But when we do velocity banking, we actually differentiate them because we assume two things: same income, no savings. Why? Because we're dumping the entire income into that line of credit. So now this is what we got to do, right? We're just going to copy most of this information here, okay? And what we need to do is now set up the second part, which is the line of credit. So now you got to decide what kind of line of credit do you have. Do you have a personal line of credit, home equity line of credit, or are you going to use a credit card? That's the credit card's a little bit more difficult, right? But I'm going to use, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't have a home, so we'll use a personal line of credit, and then you just kind of calculate, and here we are doing this step right here, line of credit as main operating account. But here, this is what we're going to do, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to select a line of credit, and so we have, what are the things that are associated with the credit line that we need? We need the interest rate, right? So we need the interest rate, whoopsie. So the interest rate, we need the credit limit, okay? Credit limit. Let me actually delete this, make it easier to read. Okay, credit limit, current balance, and then next one is the interest paid, and then the month, okay? And so now, just to make it a little bit easier to read, what I would do is just highlight all of these, right? You just highlight these with shift. Now, if you have a Mac, I have no idea what to do because I think Macs are hard to use, and I'm not that smart enough to use a Mac. But let's go ahead and highlight these yellow, bold these, and then put them on the underline, right? And so remember, month, usually the first month is actually month 0, but we're making the assumption that that you're making a balance transfer, or that the interest that you pay is just kind of already baked into the current balance, right? And then the interest rate is usually 15% on a personal line of credit. And what's our credit limit? I don't, let's just actually do this too. Format these cells. Actually, let me format these cells like this. So we go here, number format, currency. Oh, I love this. The red negative numbers. Okay, so the credit limit depends on like how much credit you're able to get. And here's a secret to getting credit. Banks don't lend you money when you need it. Right? So some people, they look at these videos, they're like, "Oh my god, this strategy is fantastic." And then they need the credit now, and therefore the bank will lend it to you. And they're like, "Where could you get a $15,000 personal line of credit?" Because people don't have those just lying around. You know what? I actually do. I actually do. So, to each their own, but this is why it's important to take classes, get educated, learn how to drive the car before you actually start driving, right? That's how we do driving lessons. But when it comes to finance, it's just, oh, learn how to drive once you crash. Kind of sad. But let's just assume we have a $20,000 line of credit, okay? And this is what we're going to do. We're going to just do a quick uh, debt transfer, right? Let's get rid of this credit card debt. So what if we moved $9,000 here to here, right? $9,000, really simple, right? And what we got to do is we haven't finished this section yet because the last part is we have to calculate our cash flow. because what we're going to do is put our entire paycheck into that line of credit, expenses out, and then it should go down by our cash flow. Now, here's a crazy thing. Once we just do a simple debt transfer, this cash flow increases from 2,300 to 2,600. Now, I know there's going to be people who complain about how unrealistic this is, right? There's people who complain about every single thing and just don't want to get the concept itself. Because here's the thing, here's the most important thing about these videos. It's not about necessarily the numbers here, it's about getting the concept. Because this is why I can review almost anybody's spreadsheet regardless of the numbers, whether you're making 10 grand or 5 grand. And actually, let's just do this, right? Let's go here, and I'm going to show you my numbers, which is nothing like here, right? But here's the thing: far too many people, they just kind of complain about like how these numbers aren't realistic, but it's not realistic to you because it's not your situation, and every person's situation is different. But where is my latest HELOC statement? So if you take a look here, right? Whoopsie. You'll notice that I have 37 grand in a balance, right? Let me actually zoom this if this zoom thing works. But, well, it doesn't work. Oh, well, all right. So if you take a close look here, 37 grand, 13 grand in payments, 4 grand in purchases, so it's like more than $9,000 cash flow. Now that's unrealistic, but the reason I'm able to do that is because I am prepared and I got the credit before I ever needed it, right? And that's how I'm doing velocity banking. Okay, so whether it's 2,300 or $1,000 of savings, learn the method itself and don't focus too much on the numbers. Now, let's go here. So we've done our debt transfer. So again, now we calculate the next month, right? So the next month is simply the previous month, which is I2, and you could see the cell that's highlighted, plus 1. Okay? And then the next month's balance is the previous month's balance, which is G2 plus H2. And again, this is month 0, so we're not going to have interest, but just apply the formula because it's going to apply in every single month, minus our cash flow, which is right here, 2681.8. Okay? And so now what we're going to do is take the average daily balance. So there's going to be an average function right here. And just make sure you get these two, right? And then you multiply it by this interest rate. So times 0.15, and then you divide it by 12, okay? And then now all you gotta do is copy and paste these formulas until you see that this is all paid off, right? And so here's the thing, I know in this example, we have a really good cash flow, about 2,000 something, right? I get it. And I like to highlight it right here so I can understand how long it took for me to pay this off. So this is about 4 months, okay? And I always love writing milestones right here in its own column, milestone, right? And I love to color it, highlight, okay? And then how long did it take us and how much debt we pay off? We paid 9K in 4 months, right? So 9K in 4 months. Now, as we deal with amortized loans, this always gets a little bit trickier, and I always like to show the velocity banking calculator here. But if you don't have that velocity banking calculator that helps you calculate I'm sorry, that helps you calculate the payoff of loans in general, then you can still use this, right? It's going to be a little bit inaccurate because what you're going to do usually is you're going to move the principal. You're going to still keep making payments, and that's going to chip this down too. But it's going to mostly be the same, right? I think the bigger number you get, the more inaccurate it gets. But when we're dealing with very high loans, we do something called chunking. Not high balances and lower interest rates. We do something called chunking where we move the loan or the principal of loan round equal to the amount of the income to the line of credit, and then we use our cash flow to pay it off, right? So for example, if I do plus 5,000 here, okay, guess what? It only takes 2 months to pay that off. So we do another 5,000, or we can just do the entire 30,000 if we're lazy, right? But let's just do this, 30000. How long does it take to pay that off? About 16 months. That's another way we do it. But I guarantee you, if you put the entire thing into that line of credit, and actually it's not even possible, because take a look at this. There's a 20 grand limit, right? So this is why we have to do incremental payoff, but let's do this. So 5,000, and then we just add another 5,000 here, right? And then we just got to do it 6 more times. So, right? And then, right? Oopsie. Wow. Wow. Was that Matthew McConaughey? No, is that Matthew McConaughey or Owen Wilson? I don't know. So, but we just got to move it about 6 more times. But again, this is not going to be totally accurate because we're making that small 318 payment, and we actually, didn't actually calculate the balance at 4 months, but it's okay. But so we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, right? And let's go ahead and keep paying. So it would be completely paid off in about 15 months, right? So now, again, at this point, so here's the thing. Don't be too accurate, right? You don't need to be too accurate. Good enough is just good enough, right? And so here we paid it off 9K, 9K, 4 months, and then 39K in, was it 15 months? Yeah, 15 months, about. Now, here's the thing. If I were going to just do this accurately, I would use that Renatus velocity pancake calculator that I always show. But this is just more like an estimate of how long it'd be paid off. And it's the same with credit cards too. Like if you have like 10 credit cards, if you want to accurately calculate the cash flow, you're going to have to update the payment every single month, and that's going to be annoying, right? Same with the amortized loans, where because you're making a payment and just transferring to the line of credit to just put your entire paycheck in there, there's going to be some inaccuracies here. But if I'm paying all my debts off in 15 months, or approximately 15 months, 39K, that's good enough. Okay. All right. Well, you see how easy that was? And I created from scratch, and there's no complicated formulas right here. I mean, if you want to get the next month, it's literally the previous month plus one, right? If you want to get the interest, that's the average of daily balance. And the previous, I'm sorry, the current balance is just the previous balance minus plus the previous interest minus our cash flow. That's that beautiful number right here, 2681.80. And I don't know about you, but some people complain like, "Hey, this cash flow is not realistic because most Americans are broke." And I'm like, I agree with you, and thank goodness I'm not here, right? All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So if you're interested in joining our group, studying with us, and who knows, sky's the limit, right? And learn and grow together. Go ahead and click the Google form link below. Other than that, have a great day. I am so sleepy. It is almost 1 a.m. right now. And yeah, talk to you all soon.